find out why this person had a pen in their desk that doesn't work. I need a motion to confirm the agenda so I can see everybody's. Christina and Ted, all in favor? Good work, Jeff. Agenda, no, I found one. There's another one. Anybody have a disclosure of pecuniary interest? Seeing none, we need a motion to adopt the minutes from June 17th. Nathan, seconded by Coralie, all in favor? Perfect. Any business arising from it? Seeing none, we'll go right to Sarah Franklin, because I don't see Justin Diaz. Sarah, it's all yours.
Thanks, Doug. So I'm going to provide you with a little bit of an update on what we've been up to at the county. We've had a number of successful funding acquisitions over the last little while, particularly in tourism. I'm sure you've heard over the COVID-19 pandemic, one of the key industries of concern has been the tourism industry. So thankfully, we have been able to access some of that funding at the county. So FedDev, through their Ontario Regional Relief and Recovery Fund, offered up some funding through the Tourism Industry Association of Ontario. So Ashley on our team has been quite busy doing a number of different programs. You may have seen some of the recovery care kits with the foot pump hand sanitizer stations. She's also had a few other promotions, such as our traveling deal wheel, which many have been following along on our social media. But forthcoming beyond that, there are also some promotional articles, as well as we're expanding our farm gate signage program. And there's going to be some more promotional purchases, such as billboards. And we're also participating in the Culinary Tourism Alliance Great Taste of Ontario road trip. So a number of different things coming this fall, which is exciting. We also received funding through RTO4, which is our regional tourism arm for the province in this area, for some further digital marketing. Beyond that as well, as tourism has kind of been top of mind, particularly through the summer, there was also a tourism day at Queen's Park, a virtual one, where there was a lot of advocacy that we were able to participate in to help advocate on behalf of our tourism-based businesses in the region. One other item I want to bring to your attention as well, and I will circulate the link in the minutes, is there's currently an ongoing survey in partnership with the University of Guelph in the region. It's a COVID-19 resident survey, and it's really aimed at measuring individuals and the individual impact of COVID-19 on everyone. They're encouraging everyone to fill out the survey. It's not a situation where one person fills out on behalf of a household. They're really looking for every individual in a household to fill it out. And it's quite quick, but it helps to gauge some of the impacts of how your life has changed as a result of the pandemic. And of course, surveys, while they can be dry, are very important and are very important in economic development work as well. I know we have used results from these types of surveys in the past to achieve funding for the region. So I'd encourage you, when you receive the minutes and see the link, to pass it along, fill it out yourself as a resident of Perth County, and pass it on to anybody else you know. They are anticipating this survey to be open until the end of October. So the sooner the better. It's currently open to both Perth and Huron residents, and currently Huron County has a few more responses than us. So we're hoping to bring up the Perth County numbers as well. So we're sharing in the voice in the survey. Perth County also recently presented at the virtual Teeny Tiny Summit. This is an initiative of OMAFRA. They host these summits annually, and we had actually been slated to host a Teeny Tiny Summit in person. And the goal is that it's a gathering of folks to talk about issues that pertain to more rural and remote locations. So we actually participated in a virtual one this year instead on August 12th, But OMAFRA is continuing with future sessions. The next one is going to be on October 20th. So I'd encourage you to check that out. I think if you just Google Teeny Tiny Summit, you might pull up the information, but I will also pass along a link that can be included in the minutes and circulated so that you can sign up. There's sort of about an hour and a half webinar that helps you learn a little bit more about what's happening across the province in places that are similar to West Perth. In addition, one of the other kind of digital virtual things we've been able to participate in is continuing with our foreign direct investment program. So typically in a year, we will travel to trade shows that are aligned with key sectors in Perth County to help recruit and follow leads to bring businesses to Perth County who are interested in expanding. Unfortunately, with the pandemic, travel is not possible, but we are able to travel virtually. I know I've personally been on meetings with companies in Italy and Mexico and Sweden, so it's quite amazing to be able to connect with folks all across the globe, regardless of the fact that we are staying at home. And it's interesting to have these conversations. There are many businesses that are still interested in expanding to Canada. And we're happy to have conversations about them, about considering Perth County as a potential location. Another item that hasn't really ceased for us is also applying for more funding. We have been successful in receiving a number of tourism dollars, but we're also targeting a number of programs for economic development. So typically annually, we do an application into what used to be known as the ICCI program, but is now known as the Can Export program. And this allows us to get funding to help us market ourselves beyond the borders of Perth County for investment. So we're looking at making an application to that program again. We've been successful in the past in funding projects such as our community profiles. We've had a profile made up for West Perth and sector profiles. And all of these tools help us when we receive inquiries from businesses who are looking to locate in the area. So it just helps us to be better prepared to address those investment inquiries. Another program which we received a letter of support from West Perth for was an application to the Digital Main Street Digital Service Squad program. If successful, and we'll be sure to let you know if we are, we would receive funding to have somebody join our team for a short-term contract to help work with businesses one-on-one to bring up their digital knowledge and improve their digital presence. It became very apparent during the pandemic that being able to do business online or improve your communications digitally was critical. So by having somebody dedicated to these one-on-one consultations and working with businesses and meeting them where they're at will allow our business communities to improve themselves and make themselves even more resilient going forward. We also released our summer opportunities newsletter back in August. I'm sure many of you have seen it already, but perthcounty.ca/newsletter is where you pull it up. We included a lot of great stories from across the county and also some information that's helpful for businesses as they operated during the pandemic. Another initiative that I believe I may have mentioned the last time I spoke to this committee is the Perth County podcast. So we're in the process of wrapping up our first season. We'll be releasing episode 17 likely sometime next week. But it's been a great initiative getting a chance to chat with different organizations who have programs and opportunities for businesses to engage with. I'd encourage you to check it out. If you aren't familiar with podcasts and don't know what that means, you can visit our website at perthcounty.ca/podcast and play the episodes directly from there. But it is available in most podcasting applications. It's a chance to sort of engage with some of these organizations, find out what they do as a general practice, but then also learn about some of these specific programs that have cropped up during the pandemic. And the episodes are fairly short. I think the longest one may be somewhere around 28 minutes to half an hour, but the majority of them are kind of the 15-minute mark. So it's very digestible, easy to learn more. There's lots of engaging content, so I'd encourage you to check it out. And we're looking forward to season 2, which we're making plans for. So if you have a look at the episodes that we've got available and there's some content that you're interested in, or things we could craft for future episodes and future seasons, please don't hesitate to reach out to me. I'm happy to seek that information out and present it. This has kind of been a new communication avenue for us. And we've heard from some of our listeners that they really enjoy the ability to catch up on information during a drive or whether they're out in the fields. So this has been a unique way for us to help communicate and connect people with the resources in our area. Two more things I'll just touch on quickly. You may recall that Perth County received some dollars for a community transportation project, and as well, so did Stratford. And we're excited that we're creeping closer to our launch date, which at the moment is targeted, I believe, in November. There's been obviously a delay due to the pandemic, but Maggie, our transportation coordinator, has been working very hard to get everything set and ready to go for launch. And the initiative is going to move forward with many safety precautions to protect both riders and the bus drivers. And you'll see more information about that in coming months. I don't have a lot of detail at the moment, but I'm sure you'll hear more about the specifics around routes and timing and schedules and everything like that closer to the launch date. But I just wanted to make sure I touched on it to get you excited about it. I know rural transportation is not a common thing, so we're pretty excited to have this program in Perth County. And lastly, I'll mention that we are still helping to recruit workers to Perth County. So one of the challenges that's been experienced by our local businesses is just not enough people to fill available positions. And that is remained true even as we've kind of moved out into stage 3 of recovery from the pandemic. Just reflected in some of the numbers on our Opportunity Lives Here platform, we have seen a dip in postings in 2020 versus 2019. But I will say they have picked up as we've moved out of sort of some of the more heavier lockdown stages. So one of the ways we're contributing to helping with recruiting is we're able to attend virtual job fairs. So just yesterday, I attended one that was hosted by the London Economic Development Corporation. And I spoke with a lot of folks that were in the London area looking for work. So we're always promoting the jobs in Perth County that are listed on the Opportunity Lives Here website. So that's the main place where we encourage everyone to post jobs. So I realize I've covered a lot, but I'm happy to answer any questions if you have any about what I've talked about or anything else.
Does anybody have any questions for Sarah? Seeing none. Jeff, are you still hiding in the other room?
Yes, yes, I am. And thank you for checking. Why don't you check if Paul, member Wetlaufer, is awake if you're going to start checking on people. Okay. I have a couple of updates. I'd like to share my screen. So I'll just give you this. This should do it. Share. All right, good. Can everyone see the screen? Municipal updates, thumbs up, perfect. Sorry for the, I want to provide just a couple of updates. I'm going to start out with our operations and activities. We made a number of adjustments, and I talked a little bit about this at our last meeting, and I'm just going to give an update of the most recent developments. We've made adjustments that allow us to maintain services as much as possible while following the regulatory requirements of the pandemic and public health guidance. And we also, of course, the main thing is we want to protect the safety of the staff and residents. The municipal office now, as of the middle of August, is open on an on-demand basis. So we continue to encourage people to make appointments for specific kinds of service if they can. But for the most part, they can come up to the office. If anyone's been into the office, you'll know that we've essentially installed a doorbell. And you know, the pandemic has kind of demonstrated too, one of the limitations of our office is the size of the vestibules in both the front office, where you get clerk service and people would normally pay bills and pay taxes. And also in the building department, the spaces are so small in those entranceways that you can only have one person in them. So this way of providing service is not ideal, but it's been working very well. And I think that, you know, in the good weather so far, it hasn't been a problem. And the number of people coming to the office is down significantly. So I'm not sure where we'll go with this. We could be in this for quite some time, but it has certainly pointed out some of the significant limitations of our building. We also redistributed staff throughout the building and just to kind of do personal distancing for different departments and staff. So most of the office staff are back in again, and services kind of continued as normal. We did waive interest and penalties on taxes and other things like that for a period for those that need it. You'll notice in our communications that we really emphasized that it was there if people needed that to get through, but we encouraged people to ask and only use it if they needed it, because we wanted to help people to not get behind at this time. And actually, we've had, you know, pretty good uptake on payment of taxes and things. We're not down revenue significantly. We're certainly not down near the amount that we were worried that we could be. So I feel pretty good about that. We will be ending that. We're looking at ending that as of October 1st is the short-term end of it. However, you know, we may have to bring it back if things decline. So we'll see how that goes. Just a couple of other quick ones. All departments adapted to, and most of the projects we had in our 2020 work plans are being implemented. So I know we had to sacrifice a few projects, but it was very limited. We, for the most part, have proceeded with projects. And we did have some services that became more costly to offer due to the impact of COVID protocols and safety procedures. And a good example of that is the decision to operate the pool and the splash pad. That cost us more in staffing, but we also found ways to cut costs and grants for salaries that we normally wouldn't be eligible for. And so through that process, we are going, you know, I think we had to offer some of those services because at the very same time, as a municipality, we were telling people that they should stay near home. We want to have some activities for them. And we'll be challenged about this at every level, because next it'll be ice in the arena and other recreational activities. And it's just going to be something that we have to deal with as we come along, and we'll keep council up to date. We do anticipate some shortfalls in revenues and some extra costs in 2020, but we expect that these will be offset by the measures implemented to realize cost savings, and by we received support from a fund by the federal and provincial government for the Safe Restart program. And we've got our paperwork in for that fund, and the allocation, we will be receiving the first automatic allocation, and we believe that that allocation will adequately cover our losses. And that's dealing with 2020. Going forward, obviously, we're going to have to track this. And, you know, I think we're a municipality that certainly has put away money for a rainy day, and we haven't had to dip into it and hope to not have to dip into it. But we don't want to see an impact on taxes as a result of COVID, not a direct impact. And I wouldn't say to you that there won't be an impact on indirect because of the rising costs of some things and the rising costs of some materials and services that the municipality buys. But as a direct impact of our services and revenues, I don't think there would be an impact on taxation, even in 2021's budget. And finally, I want to just mention that we've the support from the County Economic Development and Tourism has been superb, and it's really allowed staff at the municipality to focus on our services, knowing that support for business and tourism support has been flowed through the county. And I think this This experience with an event like this has demonstrated the importance of partnerships and the ability to spread out work, and it really demonstrates the value of our county economic development model and the services that we get from the county and the people that are doing the work. It's been outstanding. So I'd be remiss if I didn't mention that, and I know I did last meeting, but it's continued. I have a couple of other quick updates on projects. The Henry Street Bridge is on schedule for a late fall opening. I will mention that we'll go back to normal operations in the reservoir next summer because that has a bit of a tourism or business spinoff. And we're obviously going to have to watch those reservoir operations in terms of how we operate now that there's quite a bit of vegetation in there that we'll have to manage for a summer or two, how we do run the reservoir. The fire hall is on schedule. We expect occupancy in mid-December, on schedule and on budget, I should mention. The tennis courts, the asphalt and fence is completed. The top coat surface treatment and lines are to be completed by October 15th. And the park enhancements for Veterans Park, so you may recall, we cut down a few trees and we'll be replacing them 2 for 1. And we also wanted to do some additional park enhancements to create more of a parkette and a little path and a sitting area. We'll have that plan in the 2021 budget. So you'll see that come forward and we'll get that site buttoned up. And all of our planned public works projects went ahead. So all of our road construction projects, in fact, we actually picked up an additional project, that St. George Street project. There was a small glimmer of hope that we might get it, and it actually ended up being an add-on project. But when you're offered a significant grant amount through the Connecting Links program, you find the money and get the municipal share. So Mike Kramer deserves to be commended. It's been as complicated for the operations department as it has been for recreation and clerks and finance and building. All of the departments have had to adapt, and that department has managed to get all their projects going and on schedule. So I think we've done really well in that way, and I really think staff deserve credit. I don't normally toot the staff horn in that way, but I think in this case it's been extraordinary. I want to mention just quickly that I've mentioned this electric vehicle charging station in the past, and the grant was approved, and we were searching for a downtown location to put these 2 charging units, 1 pedestal, 2 units, and they're really to support downtown business and tourism. People could park at the downtown, get a charge, and then walk back. It would go on a map, and it would be promoted as one of the sites to pick up a charge. Earth is looking after all the costs for this, Earth Power Corporation, and they will manage it for the first 10 years. And we've been working on a site. So this site is the corner of St. David and Ontario Road. This is the south and west corner, and there's a grass boulevard there. It's one of the only grass boulevards we have in our downtown, and we needed a spot for the pedestal to go in a boulevard, and then we needed power that was close by. And we did try a few other sites that wouldn't work, and this site does work. It's at the east end of the downtown as you're going east, but just on your way out of town going east, but it is a very good site for what we want for that program. So I have time for questions, and maybe what I'll do is unshare my screen, and then I've got 1 slide for the business breakfast that I'll come back to.
Questions for Jeff? Sarah?
It's not a question for Jeff, but he just jogged my memory regarding operations. I neglected to mention a bit of an update about our operations at the county. For any of you who came to visit our office at 1 Huron Street in the Perth County Courthouse, we're actually in the process of moving locations. So due to a number of different social distancing requirements, as well as upgrades to the county facility for security purposes, economic development and tourism, as well as the planning division, are now co-located just across the road at 1 Ontario Street, which is the Scotiabank building. So we are up on the 2nd floor. The team, while the kind of construction and move has gone on, has worked a combination of sort of in person at that location and remotely, but we're always still available through telephone and email, just the same.
Thank you, Sarah. Now, anybody have anything for Jeff other than me? Oh, Christina.
It's not 100% related to things, but there's been a heck ton of drama about whether or not we're getting a McDonald's in town. So
Yeah.
Is that happening?
So I can, I hear the same rumors. All I can tell you is that we do not have an application. I have a lot of people asking me, and a lot of, I think they're asking because they're excited. I'm assuming, but I can tell you that we don't have a formal application, and I think we would need a site plan application for any site that they would pick, unless they went into an existing site that the use was permitted and they didn't need site plan or zoning. So I can't confirm.
Okay. Yeah, because I mean, it's all the, oh, it's going in the new chum spot. Like,
Yeah.
oh no, it's going to ruin all the restaurants downtown are going to go out of business.
Yeah, and I'm certainly hearing the same rumors. And obviously, McDonald's occupies a market segment that the community doesn't have, and they provide other products. But I think we still will find that if it is the case that competition really can work well for businesses, and it is competition, though I understand.
Somebody else had their hand up. Paul did.
Thanks. Jeff, I didn't know whether you had any other updates, whether you had any additional updates about any of the build projects that you've always been good in the past to kind of keep us updated about any projects that are ongoing and some of those things. I know COVID has probably slowed down some things. Offhand, are there any overall updates that you can provide for us?
Yeah, I provided a pretty comprehensive update last meeting, and I didn't want to dominate the agenda, but I'm happy to say I can answer on the sort of big picture side of what's the consequence of COVID on building permits and land development. On building permits, our permit numbers are great. Our numbers for pools went way up, and our buildings are still, our building permit activity has been very good. I think there's some supply chain issues, but we're really seeing good building permit activity. The one thing I will mention to this committee that's the trend that I've seen is that been getting a few real estate inquiries, like big picture inquiries from people looking from sort of Toronto and area, asking about development lands and residential development lands. And it appears to me, and I'm only speculating, and I've asked, and they say that, we may see a bit of an exodus and a bit of a targeting of our housing market that is related to people who are reconsidering their choices of where they live or where they have to live. And if we have good internet, and if we have good services locally, and we have bigger lots and good taxation, we might expect that we may attract people that are looking to live in a smaller community and have a different community way of life. And I think that on the positive side, the preliminary conversations I've had on this with developers, they understand that we would need a mix of housing, entry-level housing. We would want to have a focus. And one of them has reached out and spoke to some local businesses about their perspective on if they entered our market, what kind of housing types that those three businesses would want, three large employers would want them to build. And I think that's a very intelligent and very promising sort of way for a developer to approach the idea of coming into a new community. So I think we always expected we may see more of this, but I think we believed that it was kind of a 10-year timeline or 7 to 10-year timeline for residential. And I frankly think that timeline's been moved up significantly. The pandemic is causing a change in our housing market, which may occur within a year or two that we thought would be several years. So that's a bit of a combination of speculation and assumption. We do have applications that I can speak about, as the permit has been issued for RITS. The building permit has been issued for RITS, a significant economic injection for our community and a tremendous resource for our community in the long run. And elder care is a big part of the package, and so we're obviously very, very pleased about that. The other one I can mention is the True Built development on the north side of Huron Road out at Wimple Street. That development, we understand they're getting very close to their servicing agreement and hope to be doing work on that site. They've got some additional archaeology, which they hope to do this fall. And I hope that road's getting built in the spring and houses being sold there. So, and of course, other ones are moving through the processes, the steps in the process. So there's been progress, that's just some of the little updates.
Michelle?
Jeff, has there been anyone coming in or looking for more retail or downtown retail or larger retail department store, that type of an idea?
Yeah, no, no, not really. I've had a couple of industrial inquiries, which which is encouraging from the perspective that we need to get that. We're doing the stormwater design for the Heron Business Park, and obviously we want to ready that land and have it ready to sell. We've got the one lot we could sell currently sold to Hogslat, and that building is built. And then on the retail side, no. And in fact, I had a couple of kind of inquiries looking at sort of some of our commercial and wanting to use it for retail. And actually, I think we want to hang on to the highway commercial that we have, because if we are going to experience some housing growth, however modest it might be, we want to make sure that we don't short ourselves on highway commercial retail availability. And then with what we currently have in inventory, I think the reason our downtown is so strong is that we haven't, and of course it's struggling a little bit, but it's still doing better than I think the average. I think that our downtown benefits from the fact that we haven't allowed a lot of retail sprawl. And I think we will see some change in that if we see some change in housing, and we'll need to track that. But no official inquiries, Michelle. And actually, I'll say to you, no unofficial ones either.
Nathan?
Just wondered if there was any update. I know the RFP closes in November for the expansion of broadband in Perth. That was announced by Randy Pettipies in June. Just wondered if there was any update on that. Are we going to see fiber all through West Perth, or what is the plan? So
it's a great question, and my first response would be to say that the 5.5 million is really wouldn't be enough to allow the fiber expansion across the whole municipality. What we're expecting, though, and I anticipate you'll see hopefully a cooperative effort from the current market players. We obviously can't tell them what to do, and they haven't consulted us, but the way I believe that'll work is you will see a scramble for the proposal demonstrating how they could spend the allotted money and get the maximum bang for buck. So you can anticipate that there's quite a bit of analysis going on about node extensions where they can optimize the money to get the most people connected, and then that will translate into applications which will be made in the fullness of time, and we just hope to get as much as we can for that money. So there has been quite a bit of broadband activity. I know, for example, I hope you notice that, and perhaps you don't, we certainly notice on the inside, the municipal office is now on fiber. We went for a very long time with a 50/5 and then 100/10 connection here. We now have a full fiber connection, and it's world changing for an office that's got as many people in it, and we would grind to a halt at certain times of the day. So that's been very good, and there are a number of expansions in town that are being done. And then I understand that Bell brought some fiber in from the West End and has been offering fiber. So
Christine?
Who do I have to arm wrestle to get it down our street? Because
Don't do it when
Quadros.
you're holding a pair of scissors. It looks bad.
yeah.
I'm arm
That's
wrestling with
good.
this hand.
So it's a great question. I know that I've had even a couple of our own staff here say, you know, they picked the street next to us, and I think all you can do is talk to a couple of neighbors perhaps that might be interested and
Oh,
communicate
we
with
have so
Quadro.
many people interested, but Quadro's been very clear that the existing infrastructure is still in good condition. And they're trying to sell me the idea that cable is just as fast. And I'm like,
Yeah.
but it's not.
Yeah. And so you can only communicate with them. And I think, you know, I expect that that's your best strategy from the municipal perspective. Obviously, we're hoping they'll roll it out everywhere. And we were kind of disappointed that they chose to do a big expansion in St. Mary's when they had to dig around all that bedrock. They could have come to this real nice digging ground here in Mitchell and expanded, but they chose St. Mary's first. So.
Anybody else need something from Jeff? No, just kidding you. So we'll go on to our business breakfast, which I'm going to assume by the time we're done talking will be canceled.
Okay, well, I have, I'll share the screen, and I think we have to talk about that realistic possibility. And so I hope you can all see the screen. Thumbs up. Michelle, I can see. Oh, good. So given the COVID restrictions and the in-person, given the COVID restrictions and the current trending, I think it's a given that it would be kind of probably a poor use of our time to do a lot of planning for this kind of event. So if we think about the purpose of the event, it's networking and information sharing. And obviously networking is kind of not permitted, not encouraged, at least traditional networking is not encouraged at this time. So I talked to Sarah a little bit about this, and we wanted to talk, so I think it's done. Frankly, I mean, if the committee would like to hold off for a month and see what happens, I think we can, but I frankly think that we have to be realistic about what we would do. So I think that a couple of options that we're putting on the table to kind of get the juices flowing, and then I'll turn off my share screen and we can discuss this. But one option, so if we think about our past event, it's involved breakfast. Last year we moved to that format where we had people with the stand-up tables and a lot more networking, but the core of the event went back to a presentation from the county, a presentation from the municipality, and in past years we've had other presentations, labor market board, school, for example. So Sarah and I were wondering about two ideas, and then are open to others, but maybe we have a virtual meeting where we make those presentations. We could welcome people to the virtual meeting, and look at, I don't have to be convinced virtual meetings aren't for everybody. And I'm not certain what kind of uptake we would get, but we presumably get some. But we could do the presentations, we could have a Q&A, and we could invite businesses to participate. We could do that question and answer and have that, and then we could record it and put the link on our website, and we could share it out to anybody who might want to get sort of a snapshot update about the activity of the business, West Perth Economic Development Committee, and what 2020 has been like. And you folks have heard sort of 4 presentations about what's going on. What we do at the breakfast is we kind of roll those all up and give a good update for the business, agriculture, and I don't know, the industry community. The second option would be that we take that content and that from the presentations that have been made, make it all current, and then roll it into something like a year-end report or a newsletter. And we mail it, because we mail the West London, or the breakfast, I should say, the West Perth business breakfast gets mailed to a large mailing list. And instead of mailing an invitation, we mail a nice glossy newsletter. And so those are a couple of options. We have $2,000 in the budget. We obviously don't want to move to, like, I certainly wouldn't be an advocate of, well, let's spend the money because we'll lose it. That's not the way we do budgeting in West Perth. If you decided not to do anything and that money rolled over, we would save money in 2021 budget. But we're open to other ideas or any consideration of those two. So I'll unshare my screen and take questions or conversation.
Michelle?
So it's just a suggestion, and this is coming from stuff that I've personally done myself in the past. My suggestion would be the newsletter doesn't have to be glossy. And I think if I was you, I would put it into the local newspaper as opposed to mailing it. And then if you had someone who wanted to sponsor it, that would also help offset. So say I wanted to put an ad in there onto it or something to that effect, it would get, I think, a bigger circulation. People probably would pay a little more attention to it and then it goes to everybody in the municipality. If you put it out through, say, the Advocate or through the Marketplace or something, I think that would have more bang for its buck than mailing it.
Okay.
Christine?
Personally, I don't get the paper. I don't know if that was something that was decided by the people who lived here before we did, but we've never gotten one. And I can't say that I know a lot of people of my generation who are still sitting there with a paper. So I guess it kind of depends on who your target market is for who you want to be reading the thing.
Does anybody know if the Mitchell Advocate sends a paper to every household in West Perth? Once or twice a year, they used to.
Yes, they still do that. And the Marketplace is a free paper that the Beacon Herald puts to every household regardless, unless you specifically said do not deliver. It gets delivered every week. It's at the end of your driveway with the flyers in it. So it would go to everyone unless someone specifically said do not put one in my driveway.
I think it depends.
Yeah.
If someone has moved, like, I don't think they then follow up with the house. So I think its expansion has been shrinking as people have said, don't send it. Then they've moved away. Then it's still not delivered to that house. At least that's what I'm assuming is the situation that we're in.
So, and I'll just say that we'll certainly, if we hone in on an option like this, we can explore what the options are. And one of the things that the BIA just did is they used the ad mail approach where they hit everybody in a postal code, and it actually was a little bit of spillover just slightly outside of our area, but that's a service through Canada Post. And that's another viable one that I think we'd have enough budget to do. So we can look at the various options. I suppose the timing on this is if just to kind of guide the conversation, if there are some things you'd like us to explore, we'll take that list and go off and get them. And if we know, we can start working on content, and then we can report back with an update for the November meeting and aim for a planned mailing sometime after that.
Nathan?
Even if you were to submit it to the newspaper and put it out that way, it doesn't mean you couldn't put it out digitally as well through your own West Perth stuff. So
yeah, we would certainly promote that way.
Christina?
Has West Perth been making use of targeted ads on Facebook? I left a comment asking or suggesting that the community survey that they were putting out about the effects of COVID, that should be a targeted ad, because I've personally shared it to a couple local groups and things like that, but I've never seen a sponsored by West Perth post. And I think it would be a very effective thing to do.
I know that we've boosted some of our own promotional stuff in the past that we decided to put money into and boost and use the extra targeting. But I don't like that one would be one that we really are kind of sending somebody else's message and haven't boosted it. But yeah, and that's an option too, to use boosting. We have in the past.
So if there's no other questions, I guess what we need to come to is, do we want to wait a month? I know personally that the Sebringville Hall canceled the Ike Christmas the first week of December because they said they're just, and I don't know what Darcy's policy would be. I'm looking for some guidance here. Do we want to say it's over and move to a new format? Nathan?
Yeah, I would say it would be canceled as far as an in-person this year.
Corley?
I think the other thing is, even if we didn't cancel it, realistically, how many people are going to come? You know, I'm not going to encourage my employees to come like I would have in other years. So I think it might be very low attendance even if it was possible.
So Jeff, do we just take that as direction?
Yeah, I don't think we need. I don't think we need a formal motion. I think that, you know, the consensus of the committee that we abandon the live breakfast, and then I think if I can get some consensus from the committee on what you'd like us to explore, I think I heard support for the newsletter idea rather than a meeting with presentations, and I think you want us to look at options.
So could we have that newsletter maybe done by the 18th of November? Is that too soon? And have it at our next meeting so that we could see it? And then,
yeah,
I'm looking at probably Sarah and Jeff on that.
Yeah, and I think you know, if not completed, at least certainly past the storyboard stage and maybe draft it up and maybe some final decisions on content at that time. So yeah, I think that's realistic. So we could use that November 18th meeting as a kind of review the drafts, get further input on content, and finalize the decision on how we're going to distribute it. Sarah, do you agree with that? Yeah, perfect.
So that, oh, Paul?
Thanks. My only comment is, and I think the newsletter is a wonderful idea, and I'm sure you would incorporate this as well. One of the things I did like about the idea of a online or a digital presentation, as you had mentioned, the Q&A. There's always things that kind of come out of conversation that aren't necessarily captured inside of a newsletter. The idea of the newsletter, as Michelle had said, going to everyone, I think that has huge benefit. So kind of talking out of both sides of my mouth, I would say, as long as you keep in mind when you structure the newsletter that you put somewhere in there the opportunity for people to email someone if they have a question about a specific thing. So I don't want Jeff Brick's inbox to be filled with questions, but I also think, in fairness, if we're not going to be able to do a digital presentation with a Q&A, we need to at least allow an avenue for people to ask questions.
Can I just respond to that one, or
please?
Yeah, and I think, you know, my biggest worry as a staff person is you tell me to do both. But, you know, I'm sorry for my honesty, but actually I think there are ways to get both, and perhaps what we do is we do the newsletter and sort of do a target mailing in early December, late November, early December, and then perhaps we turn around and we do our economic development meeting, our regular business meeting in January as an online meeting, and we hard promote it and invite people to, you know, and tell them that we're going to do a year in review presentation as a part of that meeting. We dedicate that meeting to that purpose, and we kill two birds with one stone. So that's a possibility. We focus on the newsletter first, and then we do the meeting later.
Michelle?
And that's exactly what I was going to suggest. I think that's an excellent idea. And if you promote that right into the newsletter, people know that if they do have something, there's going to be an avenue for them to connect in and talk to us, not per se on a one-on-one, but like they're on a one-on-one. You're not going to be inundated, but those that do pay attention, I'm sure, would appreciate that. I think that's a great idea.
Paul?
I was just going to say that I think that is a wonderful idea, and I think this allows us a forced opportunity to take a look at doing something different that may be able to expand our audience uptake, and it will be interesting to see what feedback we get from the community by doing this, as opposed to people who, for the last 10 years or whatever the number of length of time of doing the breakfast, it's probably longer than that, but it's a forced opportunity to see what change happens or what benefits are there. So thank you. I think it's a great idea.
So therefore, we should kind of take advantage of the situation we're in, right? Work on it, work with it, work on it. So then we're done with the breakfast. We're going to do a newsletter. We're going to have that partially ready by the 18th of November. Right?
Yep.
Oh, that's a cute baby. I got a baby on my screen over here. Not you, Jeff. So general discussion, and that's what this whole meeting is generally about. Does anybody have anything they'd like to talk about? We've been talking about stuff. Christine?
I just want to highlight, so school has started. If we manage to keep things under control and the schools stay open and all that stuff, the school has changed the drop-off pickup procedure significantly. And it's causing a lot of additional traffic to be on the road. I think that's also partially a result of the busing bus driver shortage that we've got happening, but there are also plenty of parents choosing to drive their kids directly rather than put them on a potentially crowded bus. So I think the municipality needs to be aware that there are going to be a lot more cars and kids on the streets surrounding the schools this coming winter. Now, obviously, it depends on the weather and stuff like that, but I've kind of butted heads with Mike Kramer over this before as somebody who lives just on the edge of the walking side of things, who doesn't have access to a vehicle. Oftentimes the traditional walking routes to school are not cleared by the time a child has to leave in the morning in order to get to school on time. So I anticipate this becoming an issue for a lot more kids this coming winter. And I really hope the municipality focuses on, figuring out, like, for example, Henry Street should really be plowed. There's a huge number of kids that will go up Wellington, cross over Henry, and go up Morenz because that's where the crosswalk is with the crossing guard. So
Mike
I would
already
highly
has
recommend
that in his plan.
Okay,
What
that's
street did
fabulous.
he take out, Jeff? He already has Henry Street in his plan for this year. It's is that a public document?
Yeah, it went to council.
Yeah, so it'd be there.
Yeah.
That shows all the
Mi-
routes and the sidewalk clearing, and he
Yeah,
traded
Mike-
something.
yeah. Mike has adapted that plan.
Yeah.
Okay, that's great, because last year Roland was still being done, but Henry Street wasn't.
Roland's out. That's right.
Yeah.
We got
Okay,
Roland's out.
that actually makes sense. Okay, that's great.
Yes, that's the street.
And hopefully St. David and Wellington, and what's the one right on the other side?
St. Andrew.
St. Andrew will all be kind of cleared by the time kids have to leave, because typically what would happen is we would meet the plow maybe halfway up the truck, but that's just a matter of timing and coordinating and number of plows, etc., and so forth. And I'm sure with Henry Street being open, that's going to affect things a little bit too, because more kids can walk direct from that side.
The problem with that is there's no sidewalk between Pond, St. George for yet until the next subdivision's done there. But we've had that discussion.
Next spring.
Yeah, when the people come over the new bridge.
Well, so long as council is aware that there is going to be more foot traffic right now, like I think that's really important.
Yeah.
Because it's getting dangerous right now already, and there's no snow. So
Not going to be any snow this winter, just a lot of ice, I hope. A lot of salt. Anybody
juice.
else?
Let's go.
Anybody? Nathan's in the bottom. How does that happen?
Yeah, just you had touched a little bit on recreation and the arena. Is the ice going in? When's it going in? Are they expecting to be as busy as normal?
So, I should ask Deputy Mayor Height. So obviously we've had lots of discussion about this. The ice is going in right now. So we had to bring the chiller online, and we've got good subscription for ice from our user groups at this point in time. And I think we can assume if conditions aren't dialed back, that we'll do good with our rentals. We've obviously got some more expenses because we brought on cleaning protocols, and people are going to have to use the space in a different way than they have in the past. But I think that's the trade-off when you're in a global pandemic. Now, if things get dialed back, we're going to have to make adjustments. And if we did have to say, okay, it's changed to the point that the user groups aren't interested and we can't sell enough ice, I think you would see us take the ice out. That's a big decision, but frankly, I would say from a tax impact perspective for a municipality like us, and small amounts make big differences. We would probably save money if we took the ice out halfway through the year because of the money we lose on ice to begin with. And it's a chosen loss, but it's the nature of ice. So I think we're going to have to adapt as we go. And Nathan, the ice is in and we're good to go. We're going to run it the way it is. And frankly, we're also going to save some money on electricity from our new chiller. And so that might pay for some of our losses. And we're going to see that this year. So we have a new ice plant, essentially.
We had 85% of the kids re-registered for hockey and ringette. I can tell you that they've taken all their ice time, and ringette is actually rented ice in Seaforth and Hensel. So I'm not sure what all Darcy, but I know that it's 85% the registration. They can only practice from now till the new year. And then they can only play, Jeff, 3-on-3 in our pod. Pod is St. Mary's, Exeter, and BCH. When they do play, if they play 3-on-3 hockey. So now Coralie, I think, had her hand up.
I was just going to ask, with Continental Tire, do we know any more timing, or I guess, are there any measures in place to replace those jobs that would be lost, or any discussion around that?
So I'll start, and maybe Sarah, if you have anything to add. So from my perspective, and Sarah can offer more, we certainly reached out and offered any assistance we could give. Some of my kind of data collection or my sort of research is certainly indicating to me that a number of the employees in that workforce were planning to leave the workforce anyway because of their approaching retirement age. And it was a bit of an older workforce, but there's still lots that aren't in that group. And I don't have an update on timing, and we haven't been asked for any further assistance, and we're still here to help.
Yeah, I don't have much to add to that, Jeff. I think we reached out pretty quickly when we heard the news, and it was my understanding that they were being supported by Employment Ontario agencies locally, and I haven't heard any changes to the timeline. We've received some information about the facility and just kind of have that earmarked in terms of when they hope to vacate, and we keep that on our radar as we're doing our new industry recruitment. So the facility may be a good fit for somebody in the future.
It would be really nice if somebody made a mask factory there or a gown factory, because we should be looking at all that, because this isn't going away and we should be self-sufficient. But I don't know how you would approach the federal or provincial government. Like, we have both their ears, because you can buy a dinner with them on the Ritz Villa. You can have their ear if you're interested in it. But that's something that plant would be suitable. And I'm sure Jeff's probably had somebody inquire about it. I know I've had some people approach me and just wonder how big it is in that. I send them to Jeff. I hope they come to him, because I don't know how big that property is. Probably 5 or 6 acres, maybe 10. So could be repurposed to benefit the municipality.
Yeah, and I think, the transparency of this conversation, it's out that, Continental is vacating the site, and anytime anyone gets sent to me, we're gonna reach out and try to connect them with Continental for a conversation, because it would have to be a lease or a real estate transaction of some sort. And so we're not brokering the space, but we certainly want to make sure we're making the connections.
Does anybody have any other questions or suggestions or things? Seeing none. Oh, Christina. Oh, you're not on. Your mic's not on. There.
I happened to see an aerial shot of West Perth the other day, and I noticed that for our downtown core, not like the main street in particular, but all the streets kind of surrounding, there is a significant lack of overhead greenery space. And I realized on the downtown street itself, that was a decision made to not about block storefronts and things like that. But even on municipal property on like Montreal Street and things behind Value Mart, there are no trees in the front yards of any of the houses on that street. And it makes a really big difference when it comes to, I mean, both the environmental impact, but just the general like atmosphere of the street. It feels a lot more exposed, a lot less cozy. Is the municipality like looking into getting trees on properties that don't have them in their front yards? And is that something that like they're at all thinking about?
So we have an Environment, Forestry and Trails Committee. We actually had a meeting this morning with that committee, and they're the committee that is the advocate for retaining our canopy cover and our environmental tree cover in the municipality. And certainly it's on their radar. We have policies around, if we remove one tree, we replace it with two. We have, of course, you do lose out because you remove a big tree and replace it with two small ones, and that's the nature of trees. But and then trees for subdivisions come through the subdividers. The one thing is a lot of the tree canopy cover in the municipality is on private land, and so it's a private landowner's choice about whether or not they want a tree, and not everyone has that desire for a tree because they also don't want the leaves and things. So we keep encouraging, and it's really up to the neighborhood and the owner's choices. And we're replacing our trees when they're ours.
Well, I want to push back on that a little bit, because I did have a conversation with a couple of the homeowners on Montreal Street, like behind the Value Mart, and they said that when the street was redone, a whole bunch of trees were taken out, and they were told they weren't allowed to plant them back where they were because of the hydro lines.
Yep, so that's correct. We're not going to plant trees. We're not going to do 2 for 1 in the same spot every time. So there'll be 2 for 1 in the ward or in the municipality. And frankly, we would be not using our resources very well if we plant trees back that we know are going to grow into the hydro wires, and it's not good for the trees, and it's not good for the cost in the long run. So there are places where we tell people we don't want them to plant trees, but there is lots of places where they can.
Fair enough, but could you not focus on but front yard trees, honestly, they have such an impact on a street when there's a tree line across. And so if we've got to have hydro wires because we're not going to bury them, could we not look into finding smaller tree varieties that can still be planted along boulevards, the ones that don't grow that high? Because
I have a blue spruce on my front lawn. I have 2 blue spruce on my front lawn. They can plant a blue spruce. They could plant a red maple and trim it if they so choose, right?
Right, but they said that they were told they're not allowed to plant about 15 feet from the center of the road or whatever it is municipal property, and they're not allowed to plant a tree there.
Well, they wouldn't be able to plant it in the tree allowance, but if they backed it up and by their house, they would be allowed to plant it.
Well, but because of how close houses are to the street, that doesn't particularly work.
I'm just trying to think of that street there, like my sister Mary Jane lives there, but I'm trying to think who else lives in that street, but you are talking Quebec Street, right?
Yeah, and I think if someone came,
if
someone came with a solution-oriented approach about, they'd like to plant like a cherry, a sand cherry or something like that, that's only going to grow to be so big. I think if you approached with the approach of what you want to plant, I think you might find that you get the approval, but the question is going to be, you know, we need to know, we would want to know for sure what the planting was. And overhead wires are one of the utilities we're working around. We're also working around a number of underground utilities. So it's a fair question, and it's one that, you know, we can look at on a case by case basis.
Oh, okay. See, I was more wondering if the municipality would consider putting like a list together of appropriate trees for that kind of close to the road. This would be a good thing for you to plant, something that they would like kind of default to suggesting if a tree was coming down.
We have a tree committee. We have an environmental committee that could do that.
And we have a list of, and we have,
So
and we have a list of trees too, but the list of trees is more focused on the right species and the right variety for our ecozone. So not so much the growth pattern. So it's something to consider. And we'll see if we can get that committee to talk about that.
Cool, thanks.
Okay, anybody else? Seeing none, I guess all we have is a motion to, next meeting is the Wednesday, the November 18th at 6:15. Probably
Yes.
the same format,
Yes.
because I can't see us meeting in person. But I have my mask, just so everybody knows. When I go by Teddy, I have my mask. So a motion to adjourn? Ted, and a seconder, Michelle, all in favor? Thanks very much. See, we get these over quicker when we're zooming. So the young lady downstairs can shut the live stream off.